Thank you very much, Botswana Waged. I would request that we all stand up in readiness for the singing of the national anthem. Ke kopa Reverend Thapelo Boikanyo a sutelle ka kwano e re hela ga di national anthem we hela a ba re ba hapelega segalaletso sa modimo ka thapelo. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ke a dumedisa bagaetsho ka leina le le gaisang maina otlhe leina la Morena Jesu Kriste, amen. A re rapeleng. Modimo yo ko le godimong ra ka leina la Morena Jesu re a leboga mo maitseboeng a letsatsi le modimo ga o re kopantse ka tsela e kgosi ya go gopola ditiro tse dintle tseo di dirang mo matshelong a rona modimo, ra go lemoga ra bokgoni dineo tseo di re hileng kgosi ya kgalalelo, ra re ya go tlotla mo letsatsing le la gompieno modimo le ga re gopola tse dintsi tse di diragetseng modimo a rona, mme re re o santse o le modimo, o santse o le morena, o santse o le kgosi ra o busa ka bosena bokhutlo mo nakong ye modimo re hano go ipela modimo a ka go leboga rra boeteledipele jwa tautona wa pele kgosi ya kgalalelo le ka ga o mo diriseng ka teng mo nakong tse di neng di le thata modimo ya maatla otlhe go lemoga botlhale ra jo kileng wa bo monela morena modimo ya maatla otlhe go lemoga kokomane e ntseng teng le go kgona gore e kwale seo modimo a ka o kileng ra wa se dira ka batsadi ba rona, mme modimo re a go leboga re a go laletsa mo maitseboeng a letsatsi le rra mo tirong e modimo go simologa le bokhutlo jwa yone modimo re laletsa moya o boitshepo kgosi ya kgalalelo jaaka le go la go le bua rra re re mo go sengwe le sengwe re go lemoge modimo a rona re itse gore ke wena yo re neelang bokgoni, ke wena o re neelang botlhale jwa go dira dilo tsotlhe jwa go kwala modimo le go dira tsotlhe tse re ka kgonang go di dira modimo a ka ke neela lenaneo la letsatsi le modimo a ka mo diatleng tsa gago modimo yo thata yo tlherra tla ya tlenne wena yo tsamaisang tla ya tlonne wena yo buang modimo mme mo go tsotsotlhe ke thapelo ya me modimo gore leina la gago le tlotlwe le galalediwe rra go bontsha rra bokgoni jwa gago le thata le nonogo tseo di dira modimo a rona mo matshelong a rona re a rapela modimo a rona boeteledipele ke bo boga jwa lehatshe le botlhe ba ba tsayang dikarolo tse di harologaneng mo lehatsheng le modimo a rona rra ba segogatse ka tiro ya diatla tsa mothanka wa gago Tefo Pheage modimo ya maatla otlhe ke a rapela modimo ya maatla otlhe gore kgosi mo dirise go hitisa ka ga mo diriseng ka teng le gore rotlhe ba re leng gano modimo re tle re lemoge rra gore o kgona go dira ka rona go sa kgathalese gore re tswa ko kae re bomang modimo ka gore rra lehoko la go le tlhalosa jalo gore o sa le o re itsitse re ise le nne teng mo dibopelong tsa bomma rona modimo a rona mme wa re tlhoma modimo a ka go nna ba porofiti modimo go nna ba diragatsi ka ditsela tse di harologaneng re a rapela nna le rona o re etelele pele rra ka leina la morena Jesu Kriste re a rapela amen.
Yes, we may be seated, ladies and gentlemen. For that sensational national anthem. Can we give them a big one, please, ladies and gentlemen? And then it marks the start of the day's proceedings. For those that don't know me, I don't know how I rank amongst the top 10 most popular persons in the Republic of Botswana. My name is Comfort Exotic Ramadebele Tlapi Fandi Vatar Fandi Vicho. Those that know me very well, I identify with an adults-only program every Friday night. Go to my FM, Gumba Fire, Wire, Mr. Good Living, and then on top of that, I am the only person who has been conferred a vehicle to the tune of just about 1 million pula to drive around and tell you about it. It is called a Toyota Land Cruiser. How can halfway? I am trusted by brands to sell their vehicles so much so that they can confer upon me. But we didn't write any letter to say no, we have given this guy a vehicle. And yes, of course, when it gets to directing proceedings, top. That is why they refer to me sometimes as the voice with the invoice, because I speak English for money. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very, very honored to have been given the opportunity to direct this particular proceedings. And then the former Minister of Health, me, I'm afraid of being pregnant. They were not there when we were there. The former minister, Professor Shilatlo, to come and give us reflections and tributes in the context of the book that we are here to launch, and the former president. Your ladyship, Zwagalagamena, come to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Exotic Comfort Ramatebele. Yeah, we are cool, right? We've come here to rejoice. Let's be in that spirit. Yeah, for we are actually celebrating Botswana, the land that gave other countries an example of how to lead. We're also celebrating a life well lived. What he did, what other presidents are trying to do, and get into the Africa that we want. So let me recognize our honorable ministers here present, our clerk of the National Assembly, former ministers who may be here, former Attorney General and Ambassador to the UN, Lisiba, Lamukate, Excellencies and Ambassadors, including my own wage, Yetona, all the HIV/AIDS activists who are here, who were there, and who saw it happen. Yeah, you worked hard. You worked hard. All the doctors who are here, so really everybody, including members of the media, we were there together, right? And we used to have even sessions on training the media on reporting about HIV and AIDS. And I know at that time we were the forerunners, but guess what? Some of those aspects I actually used later when I was regional director for UNAIDS. And I excelled. Ask Dr. Mwedi here. She knows that I was pretty good. But I want to recognize her as the very first director of the AIDS STD unit. Elek Ananyana, you know, the unit that day. So, but yeah. And there she is now. We call her now former regional director for WHO. But you know, she's still, you see her, right? She looks 30. She'll go on. So, about the job we will show it. Yeah. But I recognize all of you. My theme, I have very few minutes. Executive, we were not told how many minutes. I take it that I have like 10 because no. Yeah, okay. So, but then you can imagine that history having to to compress it into 10. So I decided I will have a theme that is saying leadership is not about titles, it's not about positions, it's not about flow charts. It is about one life influencing another or one life influencing others. In that case, I count myself as having been that life that has been influenced by Mogae. Our AIDS activism actually came way before he was a president and even way before I was a minister. In 1984, I met a lady in Uganda, from Uganda, called Noreen Kaleba. And she told me how she and her husband had been discriminated because they had slim disease. This was Uganda then. So I got that. We were at a conference, and I thought, I hope that thing never comes to Botswana. And lo and behold, 1985, we had the first case of HIV in Botswana. At that time, I was getting ready to do my PhD, so I went and took quite a few courses. I mean, nobody knew anything about HIV. Even our courses were like, we were here and there. And when we were taking care of the patients who had AIDS, we dressed like we were going to the moon. They literally didn't see us. So, I mean, that's how scared people were of that. The discrimination was there. Even here at home, people who were starting to die of that were being buried. You were not allowed to see that person. They were being buried right away, and it's almost something that was happening during COVID. So anyway, at that particular time, when I came back, I saw Mogae and told him that now I have a little bit of knowledge, and I'm going to be doing research, women and AIDS prevention. And we worked with Dr. Mwedi, who was then at the thus formed AIDS STD unit. But Mogae was so interested in this research that he kept saying to me, what is now happening? And because it was a peer education, and we had planned it only for women, we wanted women to be the leaders because we knew they were the ones who were most affected. And he agreed with me. The one thing that this influence of mine was great about was he listened. Mogae would, he knew he was an economist, but he also knew that he cared about other things, and he would listen and be able to advise you, but most of the time he was really, he took opinions and took facts, and he was able to say, go ahead and let's see what will happen. So it was interesting that then I told him that we are doing this project, but it's mostly for teachers, because we figured that teachers will also be able to teach students and all that. But he actually said to me, don't forget the banks. The banks have women right there, and they're also as vulnerable. And we're able to actually go to the banks at the project, and even the Bank of Botswana. And that's how we then actually had a massive force of women who were ready to do AIDS activism. And indeed, 1994, there was a mother-to-child transmission. He had just become, he was now vice president, I think, and there was talk of mother-to-child transmission. We went to Canada because we had then just formed the Society for Women and AIDS in Africa, and he knew well about that. I told him we'll be going there, when we come back, I'll tell you what they say in Canada about mother-to-child transmission. I came and I remember they had actually just found that AZT, when given to women, would stop transmission, or at least reduce transmission from mother to child. From the airport, I said to my husband, take me straight to State House. At that time, he was already president. And he said, are they expecting you? I said, no, for HIV, he's expecting me anytime. So I got there, and I was able to tell him about this study. I said, your officers will tell you about it. And it was really interesting. He never said it was tried only on Thai people. He said, if it's working, we are going to do it. And you know, all of you, that Botswana was the first country to actually have the mother-to-child prevention program in 1998, the first country in Africa to do that. Yeah. But you see, that kind of influence and listening also really motivated us. We turned our Women and AIDS Prevention Project and then actually included working with grandmothers and mothers-in-law, because we knew we needed them to be able to support these women who could not breastfeed. And with that, I was able to also let him know. And, you know, it was really interesting that as we went along, at one point, he wanted me to be the national AIDS, he wanted to recruit me for when we had now had the National AIDS Council directorship, but it was not possible. However, the rest is history. I gladly agreed when he said, no, in 2004, come and be a minister, because I knew he had that keen interest and political commitment. In 2001, our African leaders had signed that they were going to devote 15% of the budget to health. When Mogae called me, I said, do you have 15% of the budget to health? Because that's the only way I can come. He said, actually, it's more than 15. And guess what? When you combined with the budget at the Ministry of Local Government, it was 20%. So I gladly came. And the rest of you do know how we were able to then push, work with civil society, do whatever, have provider-initiated voluntary counseling testing. And the results were, we brought down the rate of mother-to-child transmission from 28% to 8% within 4 years. Mothers dying because of HIV, that thing reduced by more than 50% because we were able to take care of them. And indeed, we were able to have more people on ARVs. Rolled out, in those 4 years, we rolled out to almost 80% of the people who were deemed in need of ARVs. We saw funerals go down. We saw the stigma against HIV go down, and we saw more people coming to say, I am infected, can I be helped? So it's a commitment, leading by example. You know, by that time, the National AIDS Council was in full force. But I'll tell you one influence that I had in there. One time, one thing, he was always present at the National AIDS Council. Not once did he miss a meeting. As a result of that, it was always full. Most of the time you came to the National AIDS Council and there were this many people. And you thought, it's because of the commitment of the leader. And I got to actually copy that, because when I became regional director, I found that some of the directors did not attend meetings for the regional AIDS group. Because I attended, I saw that grow exponentially to the point where I came in, there were only 20 people attending. By the time I left, it would be like 80 people attending that. And we're able to move and go to places like Malawi to work on stopping child marriages as a group, the whole United Nations group. But one example that I'm going to end with, to show Mogae's commitment, was one time we were coming from London. Actually, no, it was from the United Nations. But we didn't know that already when we arrived, the council was meeting, and it was meeting in Francistown. We came in jet-lagged. There was already a plane getting us to Francistown. And I'm looking at him, kana ke malume, so malume, ha ke re o ta robala, I'll go and chair the meeting. I don't no, ke ta robala teng, but when you can be talking and chairing the meeting. He was there throughout that meeting. We got into the meeting, he sat there, he dozed off once in a while, but when people were speaking, he was there up to the end, and then we came back to Gaborone. And I thought, this is commitment. And it was a real example to me, that a commitment that even I carried for any time. When I later became regional director and I was tired, I thought of Remogai, and I would say, he would not be sleeping, he would not be slagging, I'm going to do it. So that's the influence he had on me. And the legacy is simply that he has been a true influencer to many. He showed that commitment, and because of that, Botswana is still heralded as the perfect example of what happens when leaders care about the AIDS response. Not just the AIDS response, but the other responses too, the malaria, the TB, and all that. So I think I'll stop there, or otherwise I could say everything. But just to say thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was a very profound one. Can we give a very big one, please? Thank you. Linda, these associations, organizations that deal with HIV, AIDS, and associated ramifications, but how it's all happening in Friday night, this gentleman, we see him there. We also see him at football. We need him to talk to men. Research. Apparently safe male circumcision can contribute tremendously to the fight against HIV/AIDS. The Americans never like tota. So be American embassy. So my lordship, we are battling with this thing, and we have seen that you really influence men with how you talk, how you relate with them, etc., etc. We want you to be the voice of safe male circumcision. Okay, that's very good. Yeah, but are you? Because if you are not, you cannot go and tell people about that. Okay, hey, I'm not. Hey, I'm not so no. Okay, no, we'll put together a package for your appreciation. The Americans. Habatakamuso. Bebataka contract 6 months. This 6 months contract, whatever you do on radio, talk to people, do outdoor broadcasting, etc., we are giving you $20,000 US a month. Okay? I can check out $20,000 US a month. It's about 220,000 pula. Can live in a contract. The psychology of the knife, and give $20,000 US. Give. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are. You can cut all the way to the end in the event of this particular contract. That is the story of how and the idea, the idea of safe male circumcision over and above health ramifications. It is also ideal for the propagation of romantic ideals. Allow me at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, to call to the stage Dr. Matsidis. Professor Dr. Mr. Big Fish. Yes, it's not okay. Dr. Matsidi Somweti, Regional Director, Emeritus World Health Organization, Africa. Tsiri, come to me.
Thank you very much, RMC, for that inspiring introduction. If I'd known that male circumcision was a lucrative business, I might have had a different career. So, Honorable Ministers who are here, Honorable Minister Mbuluzi, Honorable Minister of Health, other dignitaries, I'll cut it short because when my sister Sheila has given a speech with all that energy, you better change the angle. So I'm kind of modifying to complement what she did. But I would like to really recognize all the honorable people that are here, the leaders that are here, those that have participated in this struggle, in this successful effort for decades from your various positions. Thank you for joining, and members of the community who play the most important role. I am very pleased to be here among you. I have to make a confession. I'm a returned migrant labor. It was said that I worked in the HIV unit as the leader of the HIV program for several years, and I migrated, and it is 30 years since I've worked at home. I've just come back a few months ago. So I will apologize to those people that a 71-year-old woman does not recognize. Sometimes the memory also starts to go, but just say how pleased I am to be back home and how proud I am to be part of this ceremony, because my recollection of what the situation was when I worked at home and when I worked in HIV, in UNAIDS, in Geneva, was a time of real heartbreak. We're here to honor Mogae. And I have to say that for me, he's been a beacon of inspiration throughout my career because he made, I believe, one of the most difficult decisions that I've seen an African leader make, which was unique in deciding when we had become used to, when we had transitioned, as my sister Sheila said, from having funerals on a Sunday to having funerals every day, to having funerals bumping up against each other. I recall that stage of the pandemic when there were several events happening at the same time, and and if you are late, you might wonder and be at the wrong funeral because there were so many happening at the same time, and it became a norm to adjust to the situation and be having burials every day. To have transformed the situation to where it is today, I believe one of the most difficult decisions that a leader in the African context, and I've said that I've been a migrant labor for 30 years, and I've worked with many African countries, in depth, based in many African countries. I believe Mogae made one of the most challenging decisions, even if we were an upper middle income country, and decided that the small population, I recall going to international conferences, I used to be seen as that woman walking over there, she's the head of the worst affected country in the world. So it was a kind of stigma, as well as being perhaps something of a distinction. So having that profile at that time, and having the profile of being, oh, you're a small population, we really had the profile of being a little spoiled country. You know, on the international stage, you've got your own money, so small population won't make much of a difference. Of course, at that time, we were sitting in the middle of all the migration that was going through Botswana into South Africa. That's what really drove some of the situation that we saw early in the epidemic. So lower income countries with their people passing through here. And we also had a small population in a big country. We had several homes. We were a very mobile population. I remember that. Nonale Kohai, So as a population, we were mobile in a way that's extraordinary, and that's what drove the vulnerability in our society. When Mogae decided, and by that time I had left, I have a recollection, I was working for UNAIDS in Geneva, and we used to go to Addis, to the African Union. When the government of Botswana decided we are going to have to spend our own money on this catastrophe, we are going to have to deal with that and demonstrate that we can lead in a way. I remember bumping into a diplomat from a developed country, which I will not name, at breakfast in the morning at the Hilton in Addis. He stopped me as I was scooping up some scrambled egg or something, and he scolded me, "How dare your country hold out false hope by spending your own money as if you do that, you'll be able to solve the problem." So we had a dragged out fight right there. I put down my plate and I said, "How dare you doubt that a government can take the difficult, challenging decision with all the needs that a country like ours had. HIV, yes, health, education, transforming a country that came from where we were into the Botswana of the future." So the decision that was made to invest Botswana's own money in HIV, because we were seen as this small population, middle-income country, possibly won't make that much of a difference at the international level, whatever. That was one of the most powerful decisions that could be made. One, practically, it provided the resources to do the work. Because I remember when I was running the program, one of my pleas, and at that time Mogae was Minister of Finance, one of my pleas to the Minister of Finance was to say, "I can't do my work. I'm called to meetings by partners every day. Come here, come there, come and brief us." Some of them are providing some money, but at the end of the day, they were providing very little money. And we had a small team. It was impossible to do our work responding to the daily briefings, responding to the emails. I remember getting an email. I don't know where she got my email address from. "I'm a student in the United States. I want you to brief me about HIV in Botswana." I was like, "No, can't do any work like this." So we requested the Minister of Finance, and it was agreed to help us convene the partners once in every quarter. Convene them all. Separate meetings every day with different partners with hardly any financing coming in, too inefficient, spending a lot of time. So we had that mechanism created by the Ministry of Finance, and we were able to, in a way, with their help, with their very strong support in the program, kind of classify the partners. Who's doing what? Who's providing money? Who's providing technical assistance? Who's providing advocacy, mobilizing with us? And for me, in my career, it was one of the most powerful assistance from a Ministry of Finance to a sectoral ministry that was dealing with a catastrophic situation without, in terms of the number of people, the capacity to do that. That was Mogae. Back to the decision to finance the response as Botswana. It was unique on the continent. No other country had done that, had taken the decision. We can't be in funerals every day and every week. We can't be watching our human capital decimate in the way that was happening here. We're going to fund it ourselves. So when I was told by this British person that your government is holding out false hope to African countries, you will never be able to manage the epidemic with your own money, I looked at him and said, "Who are you to say?" So we had a screaming match. I remember very well in the Hilton restaurant. It was like the small African woman and a tall European person, I'll say, without stating the country. And I told him, we can do it. If the government decides, and that was Mogae's decision, that while we are waiting for friendly partners, for supporters to mobilize the funding, we are going to lead, we are going to show, we are going to invest in the population and in our future development ourselves. That's been an extremely powerful, distinguishing Botswana from any other country up to today. Contribution that was made by the president. And what it enabled was that yes, we need partners. It's great to have help, but you can define your agenda yourself because you are mobilizing and you are using your own resources and you are reporting to your population about what you're doing with the money that was spent on HIV. I mean, thinking back, I always, after I'd left and was working elsewhere and looking at, so how is my country doing with this massive investment in HIV? Because that was the investment in the human capital. Without human capital, you can't do anything. You can't do any other sector of development. So that was an investment going well beyond health, is what we need to understand. It was, and in a small population country, where we could not afford to lose the population. I remember we were panicking about, wow, we're seeing people from a certain country who are coming in large numbers, a very overpopulated country, who have decided that here's a big country, the people are dying of HIV, let's get in there, and we're going to just occupy it. I remember those were the stories that were running around as we saw indeed the growth of people from elsewhere in our country. Fortunately, I think we were a friendly and receptive population where you're able to incorporate all the people who came to the country. So in my view, looking at the response at the global level, and I had the opportunity to work for UNAIDS in the headquarters in Geneva, and then subsequently work in WHO as the leader of the HIV program for a number of years before I went to a country level. The affirmation of our belief in ourselves, the demonstration of the caring for the population by the government of Botswana, by the leaders of Botswana, has been unique. And it has borne results, as my sister Sheila has said. We have been able to come from that situation of funerals every day, 25% HIV prevalence, to a situation where now we can anticipate, and the Honorable Minister of Health is here, I'm sure he is working on that agenda, that we'll be able to eliminate transmission of HIV from mother to child in Botswana. I fully expect that that is going to happen with the kind of investment that has occurred and with the determination and the mobilization of different interveners, having taken the response from meetings in Gaborone to communities in the farthest place in this country, because we also had the good luck to have had a good primary healthcare system that penetrated throughout the country and also mobilized the community, as has been said, to play their part. So I fully believe AIDS-free generation, we're getting there. Of course, it's a concern now, that we have gone through, we've gone through a generation of working on HIV. And we have people in our community who have not seen that experience of funerals every day, who have not been affected in the same way. And I'm afraid I'm learning that we're starting to see an uptick in HIV infection among women. So perhaps this moment of recognizing Remohai's contribution and the contribution of everybody else that has participated will re-energize us. What is it that we have to do to remind those younger people who have not seen with their own eyes the devastation, who don't know, haven't seen their friends disappear? When I was a program manager, at that time, we were keeping everything secret. So I had a notebook in which I used to note every day the laboratory results, who is HIV positive, and blah, 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 blah. And I would recognize people that I know, friends, and have to lock that notebook away in a drawer in my desk every day. So if you're working in health today, of course, that's not the experience that we have. If you're in communities, of course, you're not seeing that terrible burden of managing death on a day-to-day basis. That was the experience of the HIV epidemic in Botswana at a certain point in time. And I think we have to thank Remohai, other leaders, for the extraordinary courage of doing something that was different, of deciding we have the good luck to have diamonds. At that time, the diamonds were giving us lots of money. We're going to invest this money here. And I'm certain that if we look at other sectors, we'll find that concern for our human capital, the humanity, the pain, the grief that we are witnessing every day deserved this decision that made a huge difference and that enabled us as a country, even if most of the time I was watching from outside with a great deal of pride, to decide, to learn ourselves. Because if you are experienced with international development, now that I've retired, I can talk. If you're experienced with international development, you will find sometimes the government that is receiving financing from here, there, and everywhere has the least say in what happens. Because people make decisions. Sometimes I'm going to give you money for this, and I want you to do it like this, and I want you to do it there, and I want you to do it with these people. So those decisions, made tough as they were, I believe, on our economy, to invest in ourselves, actually gave the space to make the decisions, to make the learnings, to make the adaptations. So for example, I remember when I was working in UNAIDS, Botswana, with our persuasion, was the first country to decide that that secret way of dealing with HIV, we're going to try and open it up. So when there's a case in the family, we will inform the rest of the family, because it was one of the most important ways of enabling people to know their risks and to manage the risks in the household, in the family together. Whereas in the past, I could keep my secret. You didn't have the right to tell anybody at all. Those are the principles of confidentiality. And I could be in the house with you, living with you, sharing a bed with you, and nobody has the right to call you in and say, look, I would like you to be aware that this is a problem that you have in your family. So a lot of work. It was absolutely courageous, very, very difficult, seen internationally as interfering with people's human rights, but it worked. It paid off, because there is no way you can deal with something like this in secret, alone, in your household, in your family, in your community. It really gave the example to other countries. We used it in UNAIDS as a principle to promote, among other countries, citing Botswana's example in the government having taken the decision that we're going to have to do this, otherwise we're not going to be able to get through this. So I'm just going to conclude again by recognizing Ramogai. If you've interacted with Ramogai, the kind of simplicity, the openness, and if you've worked at the international level, you will know that simplicity and being able to talk to everybody is sometimes not a typical way in which people in the most senior positions behave. I had the very good fortune when I was campaigning to be the regional director of WHO, that the president at that time assigned the role of helping me. Sheila was part of the help to Ramogai. So Ramogai went to the African Union. I went along with him. He sat in the high-level people's lounge. Ramogai sat down. All he had to do was be in the room and sit down. And the campaign was done. Lots of people came to say, hello, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. At that time, he was no longer the president, and he was like, I've got a candidate. I need you to help this young woman. He sat down and he wrote a letter to 47 heads of state, 47 ministers that he knew, to say we've got a candidate for WHO. So really, most of the work that I had to do as a candidate campaigning, and at that time we had a group of candidates for different positions, was done by his simplicity, his humanity, his ability to speak and connect to people. Occasionally, I know he could be impatient. Who can't be impatient when you are facing the job of being a head of state? But I really have treasured those characteristics, which I actually think, as a Botswana who had to spend 30 years living away, are typical characteristics of our country as Botswana. We could have been boasting all over the place. I'm reading sometimes from young people talking about how we promote our country and seeing that now that communication is mechanized in ways that are amazing compared to a few years ago, we are saying more about what we're doing. But I think that simplicity, that openness is something that I've treasured about my country in the 30 years that I've been away, and Ramogai was a very excellent example of that. He managed to make friends, partnerships. He was one of the leaders of a group of African heads of state who were promoting HIV, speaking out about HIV when it was very, very difficult. He worked with the US, he promoted partnership with PEPFAR and other partners who really responded to our situation, but I think also responded to the leadership and the quality and character of that leadership. And I'm very pleased to see that that has been continued subsequently in the country. I'll just conclude by saying that the lessons that we've learned from this engagement of leadership at the top, engagement, we haven't talked about Mogae's various activities with non-governmental organizations in person, engaging different communities, is, in my simple understanding, what is going to enable us to go through the very difficult challenge we are going through now as a country in terms of our economy. I'm quite certain that that quality of interaction, and I'm very happy to see the discussions, the interaction happening, and our simplicity as Botswana and people who just get on with the job in the way that Mogae did just get on with the job, will enable us to overcome this difficult hurdle that we are facing today. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be back home and to have been part of this celebration of a leader of whom we are extremely proud. And we are continuing, I'm certain, inspired by his example, inspired by his style, and most importantly, inspired by the actions that he took, because it takes action. We can do speeches, we can do rallies. At the end of the day, somebody who attends council meetings himself to see what's going on every time there's a meeting is looking for reports on action and outcomes. That's what is going to do us, and that's what has brought us to where we are, a country that's honored for our contribution to the HIV response at the global level and for our achievements, for our transformation of a disaster into something where we are seeing little children and where our community is engaged and knowledgeable. So we can build on that, and I'm very optimistic about the future of our country. Thank you.
Mandates on the microphone, where the basketball height is inconveniencing this thing by going up and down. Let's give a very big one, please, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I guess I really need to go to school because it's a director, for example, yeah, now the director emeritus. Emeritus Archbishop Desmond Bishop. Thank you very much, Your Ladyship. She said she's 71. Very, very inspiring. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, the very first person to declare his status publicly, I remember Charago Munsiwa CJSS at the time, one of the people who inspired personal discipline in the context of sexuality. Yeah, the proper discipline. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage Re David Ngele. Why did I choose? Yeah, here he is now. 40 years later, my Lord, my Lord, my Lord. I give him some now. Hey, I give out one.
But I'm very much sorry that you won't hear any English because now I've only done sub A and sub B. So bear with me. I recognize in me Shilato and the other ones. Lelo Nahela, Balelinti. Akerla Horaris Huasa Pal. Yanum Bages, Kilebohatata Hore, Kibiki Bonisuba Kariana Sehore. Kito hubua kana David Chezao Ngele. Yanum, today I'm 75 years old. Yanum, ke batla gore ke le bontshe tsela e ke e tsereng go ithela ke kopana le rre ra rona Festus Mogae. Nna ka bonna ba gaetsho I tested ka ngwaga wa 1993 on the 17th of April ke le kwa Ramatlabang. The result ka nako eo ne di ta moragonyana ga nakonyana. On the 28th the result tsa ta be dire hey David you are HIV positive ke bolelwa ke nurse mongwe le moshimane a le ko Ramatlabang go tintumela. Hey, then I started to hold my head. Ele gore ke ne ke followa CCTV. I lore bangwe ba kile ba e bona. That CCTV leon ilia ya ga kare mme ha ile gore I can be found be positive. Ke tshwantse go latela se filter di dage ke so se sileng sampha tutonyana kana go eno. Mirile ntumelang a sena mpolella di result ba gaetso. One thing e kileng ka ya kanya kare go kota se kwa gona le di bluecom ko Ramatlaba mo kone ke berekela di. E be ke bona gore hanga go di bluecom kwa ka tsama. Mme sengwe sa rothela mo tlhaloganyong ya motho no, life is a gift from God. You are not supposed to take it yourself. Then on my way we get what am I doing now? We get nya me ke boele go ntumelang gore ntumelang ke batla gore yanong ke buele le batho nka dira ja ka boela go yena. First abantsang kisa no hona le ine sin HSTD unit ine le TB and something program ine e teletswe ke mme Tshidimwe kana kwa ti ha ke so ne le Dr. Tshidimwe kana kwa ti ngare gongwe ke setse ke mo lebetse ka re ke nako nyane e ha mara gwa yanong ha go le ho aba le gore ile bang ka mogela ke ithetse mme Tshidimwe ka ithela mme Lydia Seletso go motso more mme mama akuma batho ba ile ba direla ba ira so go tintsi dilo maikuto ele gore ha ke ntse ke re go re nna how am I going to do ka nna le gore ke sidilege ile ha ba ntsha bone ha be ba nkisa go Red Cross ke kopane le mme go ki seretse be ke kopana le monki moraka mo wa go roba le ka kagiso batho ba banka ga ba gaetso ile ha ba senona banka ga ka bona go le bothokwa gore a ya no nka nna ka bua le batho ha ke le mo tseleng ke gone ha re se moganeng gore ya no re to kopana le re ile ka ngwaga wa 1993 ka di 24 tsa ga November e ke bona gore nya mme ke buele batho ke ba bolelle gore am HIV positive ka re ya no ke setse ke seditswe maikuto ke siame kanta ke se ke bone sepe. You know, bakwala dikgang, the journalist, they can lift you up and they can destroy you. The following day, one of the journalists about, hey, my friend, do you know this is David Ngeli? This is the one. What is David Ngeli then? That is David. When I look at them, they look at me. So then I stood up and say, no, gentlemen, talk about me. Kinama abani kako Princess Marina Hospital talking about this. Kona abana le go putulu. Ke ra gore ke tsela e ke etsa maile. Verta go kopana le ra rona no gona le mme Joy Pumape. Joy Pumape ke ena ile ngare amogela re le ko tokweng ko Oasis Motel gore no. Ha ile gore we have managed to talk to people. Let's give you freedom to do that. Agalawa. Avec ce moule, il y a avec ce moule là. Mais aussi, quoi de oui comme elle a appelé ou à me faire ça va la palaka. Agalawa. Haba la palaka va s'en avoir mouhela. Ou votre nom cotani nyaka. Ah c'est non avoir à mouhela. Note. Bon on a gagné banal carabo. Nera copana le moine comme rare. Ah d'une fois que copane le rafa ou comme molo corona HIV rafa et no hurutili. That was the answer. So more questions than that. Yanung, totally to ministry in agriculture. And I had ministry in agriculture, Dumela Takilkoramatavama. Nakom Dr. Raboro, I remember him, I don't know whether he's here or not. Aban Peter Munna, we saw Mangenana Kokomukwa, ke tsara mataba ya ne be ke itumela gore go khomokwana le nna go nna gone ga ke o ira mataba ke a go nna kwa gore ke ne le malalane ha ke tsena teng ka bona doctor mongwe gone go ira tsena kwa re hey ha o robala o tisa mangena na o go bukela boroko ko Francis Town then I said ya no go nkisa Francis Town ne ke rile ke tlo dira sengwenyana re wena back to Ramataba ke tle kwa ya no bunsu ja mo boga ket ka re ya no doctor o ntshitse me doctor ke show teng gore those are the people ba ke leng ano ko morago be ke reflecta gore ngaka o nthusitse gore hanga be ke stikile go khomkhwana nka be ke sule ka gore no go le open ne re ha o tsamaya ka koloi ya government ena le sticker sa animal health bo me ba ba itse ba go kgwela matha ba re ba animal health no good ne re tsa wa re se batho sente me anong ba gaetso ra rona mo gae a re ema so go teng noking ga bo go tswa lenaneo le go teng ntwa e bolotse I became one of that ntwa e bolotse ra simolla ra bua ba gaetso ke tsamaile Botswana jo ke bua ka irile la bohelo batho ba ne ke tshepa gore ga ba ka ke ba riana ba re a yo rekile re mo gae o mo rekile gore a tsamaya re ba tare gore ne ke nonne ke le shapo ka da kwati ne re lo ena o bona gore yeah this Morocho is really black and he's all right no go sena le a eme yona ka re ga ke ema ga ba re no ne ra ke ke dira di tingele futa ba bona gore no this is the real man ya no homo ra we itse gore batho ba bona gore nya irile ko morago batho be ba bona gore nya re Festus Mogae ga ntheka ba gaetso ibile ga ntsha le ga ile madi ape gore bolella batho gore o tshela ka mogare wa HIV no o ne an o itse ke monno ke nya gago le di minister tse di go ta go tsena mmarona me professor e be ile gore jaanong ke monno ke nyele hela ba gaetso ke yone e dirileng gore ke nne strong like I am today. Don't look at me how old I am or how tall I am or how black I am. No. Just make sure I was really one of the people who fought for the stigma of HIV/AIDS. See kotas. Ya no ke batla gore ke le bontsha gore doctor ne ke bua ka ena ke disitseng gore ke se ke ka nna le malalante ko. Video doctor akwaya nya ema hela ntsala little more Dr. Vincent Masu agana ke nna go khomokwa nka be ke rekile Hilux tse dinte ke le go khomokwa bata ba gana me today I can say gore he saved my life but you know he did not know that he saved my life. She did not know how she saved my life. I was in Mexico. Really, 13 countries. The global network of people living with HIV/AIDS. Nearly European, European Kanakwati. We are 13 countries here, which means it's no more European what? It's now a global thing. I was one of those. Yeah, no. Kadi 24, May, 1994, the African Network of People Living with HIV/AIDS in Kenya and Mombasa. I was part and parcel of that. But I was parcel and parcel of that. So, bagay so ke batao hetsa ka hore hanne le gore dio tse ke na le titelelo totally ke itumela gore nka be ke bolella batho gore modimo o nthatile go nthata ga modimo ga ke re gore ke bothale ja gore ke saswa kana ke sampe ke le teng ka gore malobane ke le mo Gaps FM yo mongwe ba botsa gore a re ngelo sampo tshela ba bona so bagay so ke teng sampe hela ke tshela le lona ya no ne ke ile ditse gore Minister of Agriculture ha ne le gore ba teng ha tota to understand ibile be ba bone gore I'm still the product of the Minister of Agriculture. Sampe ke rata go le go. Ka re dilo tse tsotlhe tse ke di simoletse ko ministry. Jaanong, this book ya ga Rre Mogae ba gaetsho, nyaga, it's not the book. Ga ke a Yohane ke le hearing ke be ke le tsholeletsa le bona. Gore this is the really book that we need. Gore our new generation should come, they should read this book. Why are you reading the Bible every time? And it was written 2,000 years ago. But they fail about the HIV/AIDS in this country. That is the question that you should also ask yourself. But you are reading the Bible every night or even in the morning. Janong Bakaso gave a the people who lived with HIV and AIDS during those days. The Beauty and the Beast. If anyone knows that the voice, God let today something in a leon. Babi Tamutio saying the international women of living with HIV is international, but she managed to bring it more to her. But during that time, the stigma and what she was called the Beauty and the Beast. If anyone remembers that, you must remember that. A 12-year girl. The 12-year girl asked me, "What is your name?" I said, "No, David Ingel." "How old are you?" "Hey." Before she asked me how old I am, she said, "When were you born?" I said, "Hey, I was born many years ago." "No," I said, "When were you born?" I said, "No, I was born." "Okay. You were infected." I said, "Yes." "Do you know who infected you?" That one I couldn't answer. And then she said, "I really came here to see an HIV positive person who's 70 years old, which really I think my father should be the size of that 70. But I've met a stupid old man who doesn't even know how old is he and when was he born." So if what I have said is stupid, please don't confront me. Be diplomat. I thank you very much. Take me down.
David Ngele, ladies and gentlemen, Mushabagalo Hofi. No, quite inspirational actually. His longevity of life and to have survived. Kana Iraele abo rengele. Ronarele malaitiana regola. He boletse bone bo ka go direla story re ha bota go wena yana ha bo setse botile sente gone hale bo go betsa pele ka SKL. A ke tsura ala ga go logelwa sente. We are not joking. We are kind of relaxed because how from our families, this thing had how running stomach, coughing, all at the same time. How old Big yellow bone, half London, proper. Yeah, that's how how open a libraya thing terrible open like you where are the buttocks and where's the other part? Who like that? Yeah. Abare umpona kilibutuka. That's it. So to see this longevity of life, my lordship, it inspires. It actually inspires. And for that, Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, ke simolla ha jaanong, a seasoned journalist, a scholar, and communication specialist with a strong interdisciplinary academic background. He holds a master's degree in politics and international relations from the University of Botswana and has just completed his second master's degree in communications and media from Amity University, India. He has also earned an honors degree in broadcasting and journalism from Limpopo University of Creative Technology, in addition to his postgraduate qualifications. He has pursued further studies in a range of specialized areas. He holds certificates in public policy analysis from London School of Economics and Political Science, Professor Mary Weather, HIV/AIDS counseling from Boitekanelo College, and A2 French language proficiency JTM from the University of Botswana. He's also a graduate of the Geopolitical Summer School at Charles University in Prague, Czech Republic. My way, Mzana wa Ndaka. His work and research interests span politics, international relations, public policy, media, and development. He brings to this, to his writing, a blend of analytical depth, investigative rigor, and a passion for storytelling rooted in real-world issues. Ladies and gentlemen, the author of the book that has gathered us here today, the book is available outside at 350 Pula, and it leaves this place autographed by the author himself. Please allow me to welcome to the stage Tefo Pheage. Tefo.
Thank you very much, Master of Proceedings. The greatest injustice you can ever get as a journalist is to be requested to be in front of the cameras, because we are used to being behind. So I find myself today at a discomfort, but I will manage. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to ride on the protocol that has already been observed by the previous speakers. It is with immense gratitude and humility that I welcome you to this special occasion, the launch of my book, Mogae's Battle for a Nation's Survival, Inside How Botswana Waged War on HIV and AIDS. This book records one of the darkest yet most defining chapters in our nation's history. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Botswana was staring into an abyss. HIV and AIDS, discovered in 1985, was not only claiming lives, but also threatening to erode the very foundations of our society. At its peak, the disease was tearing through families, crippling the economy, and robbing the country of a generation. Prior to that period, Botswana's health and demographic indicators painted a picture of a nation on the rise. But all that shifted dramatically as the epidemic hit our shores, collapsing our gains almost overnight. In the early stages, as often happens in health crises, there was a regrettable tendency towards a blame game, with responsibility often shifted rather than decisive action taken. Former President Sekitumila Masire, in his memoir, Very Brave or Very Foolish, at page 237 to 239, candidly owned up to his government's missteps in the early days of the epidemic, calling it perhaps his greatest regret. Please allow me to quote. "During my time in office, our failure to deal with HIV and AIDS in an effective way in the early days of the disease arose from judgmental errors. It is one of those things I wish I had handled differently, and it is perhaps my greatest regret." In the same book, Ramasira praised his successor, President Festus Mogae. Please allow me to quote. "The way President Mogae has taken very active leadership is a great credit to him. He has correctly seen the issue as a very broad-based political and social one, not simply a medical or health problem. He has spoken out regularly and forcefully about the realities, and he has also been very effective in bringing partners from other countries to assist in combating the disease. I just regret I did not do more when I was president." Close quote. This book chronicles Botswana's journey in the fight against HIV and AIDS. It documents not only the science and policies, but also the human struggle, the sacrifices, and the courage of a people who refused to surrender. It is a story of mistakes and lessons, of weakness and strength, but ultimately of a nation's triumph over one of the deadliest epidemics the world has ever known. Let me emphasize that this is not a book about one man alone. It is about the doctors, the nurses, the civil society activists, international partners, and ordinary Botswana who stood shoulder to shoulder in that battle. Had it been possible, and had my book designer agreed to my request, the cover and inner pages of this book would have carried the names and faces of all of you, the HIV and AIDS war veterans. I wish to assure you that this book is well researched. I read extensively, immersing myself in a whole panoply of both primary and secondary sources, which included authoritative studies, official government reports, Hansard records, newspaper reports, and scholarly journals to lend utmost credence to my work. This is not to mention the interviews I conducted with experts in the field, both in person and via the inbox route, and who included doctors, public health officials, and people living with HIV and AIDS. Health storytelling is never an easy task. It can easily be weighed down by jargon, data, clinical detail, and may be found boring. The biggest challenge for me, I must admit, was staying true to the discipline of health reporting, while at the same time bringing this history to life in a way that is vivid, engaging, and readable. As we launch this book tonight, let us also remember, history is not for the archives alone. It is a mirror reminding us where we come from, and a compass pointing us where we must go. HIV and AIDS may no longer dominate the headlines, but it is still with us. Writing this book reinforced for me how political will can change the trajectory of a nation's health. At this point, fellow compatriots, I am proud to also introduce to you what will be known as the National Health and Leadership Dialogue, an annual platform designed to bring together political leaders, health professionals, academics, civil society, youth innovators, and the private sector. In every health crisis, we have seen lives lost that could have been saved with better preparedness, coordination, and timely decision-making. Botswana, like many nations, has confronted epidemics, pandemics, and other public health challenges that exposed gaps in health systems, policy implementation, and emergency response. This dialogue, therefore, is an intentional response to these lessons. This will create a platform to reflect on past health challenges, share lessons learned, and inspire solutions that will strengthen Botswana's health system and leadership for the years ahead. Each year, it will explore a guiding theme from health financing and political will to youth innovation, technology in healthcare, and pandemic preparedness. The first edition, which is already in motion and scheduled for next year, will focus on reflections from Botswana's COVID-19 response, drawing lessons to strengthen preparedness and resilience against emerging and future threats. The COVID-19 task team, can you please rise? I thank you. Allow me, as I conclude, to salute the following personages for being fundamental to the inspiration, quality, and efficacy of this project. Veteran journalist Gideon Nkala for reinforcing the research effort and for his editorial input in the inceptual chapters. Benson Saili for supplying the meat of the entire text, for seeing to it that the work is sound in both literal and organizational sense, and that it is thoroughly informative. Ndiko Muzila of Don Bell Academy for her invaluable contribution to the realization of this event. Special appreciation also goes to I6 Logistics for their invaluable support in managing this event at no cost. And finally, to my many friends, some of whom are present here tonight, who gave generously. I hope you will not be coming back to me to ask for kickbacks, as is often the case in politics. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for honoring me with your presence this evening. Thank you for keeping alive the spirit of resilience that has always defined us as a nation. And thank you for allowing me to share this story. A documentary on this project is envisioned, and it is my sincere hope that you will join me in making it a reality. As we take the next steps together, remember this and keep it in your heart. This is not about me, it is not about you, it is about the people. I thank you.
Nice one. Let's give him a big one, please. Hey, yeah. Hey, daughter, yeah. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's about the people. Yeah, quite a touching speech there. Can we give him a very big one, please, once again, ladies and gentlemen? I'm also happy to know MC with hope. And Dr. Hela, the thing that touched me about how you recited your speech, you read it exactly the way I wrote it for you, my man. Aye man. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, let's call Melody Creatives. Melody, yeah. Is it Melody or Melody? Kana some of us are Botswana from the diaspora. I come from the country where originally Robert Mugabe comes from. Wow, they wrote our half jammer. So sometimes it's gonna kun latikeli la ela making zikisi living. Making salaki lingali kanti kwatino. I know it's gonna do galar. Eki Botswana ka zipampiri proper. Chinese from the diaspora. Hey, thank you. Hello, ladies. Yes.
tshwanela e nnile ja rona boikaego nametso le nametsago e dilile di ditile pelong tsa rona tshwanelo yane e ne e re lebagane go ntebanye le wena re ka dumalana mo gae re ipelela mogae ka kapa ya motia kwa moseja ba go itse ga mabese a kgama baga ba kgale go bua ka wena le kaba la motia le malwetse wa apaletse monyedi fatlhegong tse nneng ditlhontse o tsisitse malapa a tasesha mabaleso a fetoga mong wa lelapa go nna ngwetsi le metsi ra simolola go a nwela mmele e seng go retibatsa maikutlo a lerato le lethabo tsa go lebagana mo gae re ipela ka mogae.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Arba Sapekale Kofi. And then we proceed. Magister Monate to the good Hopola Sona Sanin Kratili, one among the determinants, Ponosi, the good Maran, one out the Galasayan, Tabachu, Roman Mangi, Palisco, Isobo, Kawanaka, twinkle, liquor style. I want what you are. Basha Pekale Kofi, Basha Pekale Kofi. And then, the former Attorney General, passed the bill or something like that. Oh, before I go there, a gentleman who looks exactly like me. The first time when we met and looked at each other, we were like, okay, somebody must not have told us something here. That's what we are saying to each other in our hearts. Ladies and gentlemen, and a very good friend of mine too, and also verbose like me, and also yellow bone like me, Mpo Machaka Murua Homo. You know. How are you, my brother? Ladies and gentlemen, Megibitse, the former Attorney General, the Botswana permanent representative to the UN office at Geneva, Dr. Atalia Molokome. Leadership.
Big fish. Big fish. Who see big fish? I saw a lot. Sansa at Launa Moho Katang wrote me. You know, the diplomat in me doesn't allow me to sit next to ministers and subject them to long speeches from those like myself who are less. I don't want to say less important, but you know what I mean. Honorable ministers here present, Remuluti, Dr. Modise, the clerk of the National Assembly, I don't know whether he's here. I wasn't given an order of protocol that I can 100% be confident about. Senior government officials, members of the diplomatic corps, former director, WHO, Afro, my good sister, Dr. Sidimweti, Professor Shilatlo, my two Kalian sisters. I'm so proud of these two women. May I want to add a third one, Joy Pumapi. These are, they all went to St. Joseph's College. Judge designate of appeal, Advocate Sydney Tepito Pilani. I recognize you, I recognize the author,
of this book, Re Tefo Pheage. Congratulations. And do forgive me if I did not mention someone in particular. I was not, as I said, given. This is a disclaimer, a complete order of protocol. As I said, I prepared a few remarks, which I think I will skip because, as I said, I would not like to subject honorables to a long evening, to them listening to us and saying their words so much later. But it is a distinct honor to be here this evening at the launch of the book entitled, and I quote, Mogae's Battle for a Nation's Survival, Inside How Botswana Waged War on HIV/AIDS, which is being held under the very fitting theme, Remembering the War, Renewing the Vows. It is even a greater honor for me to have been invited to say a few words on this auspicious occasion in recognition of the work of an exemplary leader during whose tenure I had the privilege to serve, first as a judge of the High Court, and then as Attorney General. I therefore would like to start by thanking President Mogae in absentia. Cheza is here. She will deliver the message, for his stewardship of the nation's affairs, which catapulted our country into middle-income status within a short period of time, and the confidence which he reposed in professionals such as myself, irrespective of age and gender, to serve this republic. It was a pleasure, I must tell you. I think my sister Sheila will share this. It was a great pleasure to work under Mogae's and his team of dedicated cabinet ministers and other public officials, to learn from him personally. All the time. To learn from him about the importance of leading with integrity, tolerance, meaningful consultation, and humility on the one hand, while being firm and decisive on the other. Please forgive me, for I know I was not invited here to praise Ranametsu, but he has been praised because he deserves it. But to focus on the contributions he made to the global fight against HIV/AIDS. I recall the pleasure of advising a listening and yet engaging leader, and how he was interested in legal advice beyond technicality and focused on what was morally correct. He always said, AG, that's the law, yes. I understand the legal analysis. I do hope that it is also morally correct. And I admire him for this. So, Mogae's legacy extends far beyond HIV/AIDS. So I wanted to just place this on record before proceeding to the subject of this evening, which I now hasten to do, and hope I will be as brief as I intend to be, because as I said, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, at the risk of stating the obvious, President Mogae's contribution to the battle against HIV/AIDS goes beyond the borders of this country, to the regional and global spheres, and my good sister, Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, has shared some of this with you. This was made possible by his broad outlook on development and deep awareness of the importance of Botswana engaging actively with other countries in multilateral solutions through, among others, the UN and its agencies. One such agency that we know and that has been referred to by both Professor Klo and Dr. Moeti is the Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS, or UNAIDS, which was established through the Economic and Social Council, otherwise known as ECOSOC, Resolution 1994/24 of July 1994, to undertake a joint and co-sponsored United Nations program on HIV/AIDS on the basis of co-ownership, collaborative planning and execution, and an equitable sharing of responsibility, end of quote. With 6 UN systems co-sponsoring organizations, which I will not name. The UNAIDS, which has its headquarters in Geneva, where I served until the end of 2024 as ambassador and permanent representative to the UN, is guided by a program coordinating board, or PCB, with representatives of 22 countries from all geographic regions, the UNAIDS co-sponsors, and 5 representatives of non-governmental organizations, including associations of people living with HIV, who Rengele reminded us of. The board meets twice a year, and Botswana served as a board member of UNAIDS from December 2022 to December 2024, when I had the privilege to serve as ambassador in Geneva, represented by the National AIDS and Health Promotion Agency in this role. It was a matter of immense pride for me as ambassador to observe that Botswana was highly respected and contributed meaningfully to negotiations and decision-making regarding UNAIDS global policy and strategic direction. This, obviously, was made possible by the firm foundations that were laid by President Mogae here at home. And I can also confirm that he continued to play an important advisory role following his retirement, as I hosted him in Geneva on a number of occasions for HIV/AIDS-related events. So thanks to President Mogae's tireless efforts, again, Botswana has become known as a global pioneer when it comes to HIV/AIDS management. I was going to cite a few examples. The Minister of Health is here, and I'm going to leave these bragging rights to the Honorable Minister, the achievements that we have made. I know, Minister, you're making closing remarks, but I do hope that you will share some of these achievements, some of which I think were enumerated at the last World Health Assembly in Geneva, which you attended. Thank you very much. So, because I don't want to keep you here all night, I'm going to skip most of my speech, but say something which is quite important. Yes, we've achieved. We've done really well as a country. But my sister, Dr. Moeti, again reminded us, Shilatlo as well, the professor, that we still have challenges. We've done well on mother-to-child transmission of HIV/AIDS, but we are seeing this rise, this re-emergence of the virus among young women. Young women, I'm told, make up 9% of the population in Botswana, yet represent 24% of all new HIV infections. We need to work on this challenge, and we must work to tirelessly address this problem. Let me jump to the conclusion part of my paper, true to my promise that I will not keep you here all night. Let me conclude my remarks by expressing the hope that by sharing what Botswana has been doing at the global level, which I can also share with the author and the organizers of this program, the details are in my remarks, I hope we can better appreciate the critical role that President Mogae played, not only in ensuring the survival of our nation, but also in the global fight against HIV/AIDS. We are proud of Mogae, and we thank and commend the author of the book, Mr. Tefo Pheage, for bringing your achievements to light in this publication. Ra leboga. Author, we thank you also for your remarkable speech, which you shared with us, and I'd like to join those who've spoken before me in expressing optimism about the future of Botswana. There's a lot of negative vibes going around, which is based on such solid foundations as laid by the likes of President Mogae. I am confident, like those who've spoken before me, that this inspiration will continue with our current leadership, who have shown a commitment and determination to deal with the challenges that the country is facing. I think the recent actions that we have seen the President conducting on the medicines, the medical supplies, is something that is extremely encouraging, and we would like to commend him and his government for that. I wish our leaders, as I end, and the nation well as we navigate the many challenges that we have, but also continue to be the optimistic and very, very, brave country that we have always been. Thank you for your attention.
Short and sweet, thank you very much, Dr. Armusabekale. And then in that one, Dr. Modise ke tata ke go bona ke rene ke go bolela khantele gore ke tsene ya mo safe male circumcision ka ipusha gore re ke te ke go bone concern ya these imaging numbers and my lyrical gymnastics and my ability to motivate change. And the people are here, the sponsors are here, so I'm coming, my lord. I get the cover to ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call to the stage the chairperson of Bokongo, Botswana Council of Non-Governmental Organizations, Madam Cindy Kelemi.
Honorable Minister of Health, Res Stephen Modise, the Minister of Environment and Tourism, Honorable Winter Mulutsi, I want to believe the best brains of Botswana are here tonight. So allow me to ride on the protocol that has already been established, because I believe all important people are here tonight. Distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, and non-conforming, a very good evening to all of us. It is indeed an honor. Maybe before I even go to an honor, let me introduce myself properly, lest I don't get my salary end of the month. I am the Executive Director of the Botswana Network on Ethics, Law, and HIV/AIDS, and also the Bukongo Chairperson. So I carry the weight of over 300 NGOs who, in part or in full, are responsible for the results we are celebrating tonight. So I'm going to, contrary to Dr. Mulukume, I'm going to be very long, because I've given each organization 1 minute. So that makes it 300 minutes. So alang di kubo. No, I'm joking. So it is a profound honor to stand before you today as we launch Mogae's battle for a nation's survival, Inside How Botswana Waged War on HIV/AIDS, authored by the talented and courageous Tefo Pheage. We gather under the theme, Remembering the Battle, Renewing the Vow, a powerful call not just to reflect, but to act. Tonight, we do more than launch a book. We revive a memory. We reawaken a moment in our nation's life when everything we stood for was under threat. A time when Botswana faced an enemy that was neither foreign nor visible, but one that infiltrated our homes, our hospitals, our hopes, and our dreams. In the early 2000s, HIV/AIDS swept through our communities. We were losing a generation. Death had become familiar. Fear was everywhere, and so was silence. But one man chose not to be silent. His Excellency Festus Mogae, the third President of the Republic of Botswana. He chose leadership over convenience, action over fear, and truth over politics. When the world was still whispering about HIV, he was shouting from every podium, he did not flinch. He declared a war, not against his people, but against the disease. And he led that war with political will that was unwavering, with leadership that was fearless, and with a deep, abiding love for his people of Botswana. Through his leadership, Botswana became the first country in Africa to offer free antiretroviral treatment, and I think this has been said over and over. His approach taught us 3 critical lessons. 1, that political will is the foundation of public health success. Without bold political leadership, strategies fail. With it, even the small nations can lead global change. Mogae proved that when leaders prioritize people, progress follows. The second lesson is that a multi-sectoral approach saves lives. He knew HIV was not just a health issue, it was an economic and social issue. Ministries, businesses, faith leaders, and there are so many tables there. baruti ba rona, traditional leaders, and civil society organizations, we saw a united front against a common threat. The third lesson, community leadership, is the backbone of sustainability. He empowered communities not just to receive services, but to shape them. Peer educators, village health committees, and local champions became warriors in this national battle. These were not just policies, they were acts of survival, and they worked. The fourth lesson, a human rights approach is a critical enabler. For the first time, we openly talked about difficult conversations we've never had before. We talked about men having sex with other men. We talked about Bo Siantlu. We talked about a number of issues. Discussions which challenged our cultural and our religious beliefs. But through it all, there was still cohesion. Where am I? But today, as we remember that heroic battle, we must also confront our current realities. Our health system is ailing. I know that Dr. Mulgume said there is a lot of negative, but sometimes we just have to tell issues as they are, or state issues as they are. Our health system is ailing. There are chronic shortages of medicines and critical health commodities. Non-communicable diseases, hypertension, diabetes, cancers are rising. Mental health, long ignored, now demands urgent attention. The hard-won gains of our HIV response are under threat, not from the virus alone, but from weak systems that can no longer carry the weight. We appreciate the recent declaration of a public health emergency by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Botswana, Reduma Gideon Boko. It is a necessary and commendable first step, but we must be clear. Declarations are only the beginning. We need reforms. We need investments. We need a bold vision for health that echoes Mogae's courage, but meets today's complexity. We must renew our vow. The war is not over. Bias 5 says over 2,200 new infections a year. So we must renew our vow that health be prioritized, not as a luxury, but as a right. That our systems will be resilient and sustainable, not donor-dependent and fragile. That our healthcare workers will be supported and equipped, not overburdened and under-resourced. That we will integrate HIV services with NCD care, mental health, and primary health care for a truly people-centered system. If Mogae could lead with courage when the world was afraid, then surely we can lead with vision now. We can lead with vision now that we know what's possible. Let this book, so powerfully written by Tefo Pheage, be more than a record of the past. Let it be a mirror, a map, a mirror to remind us who we were at our bravest, and a map to guide us back to a future where health is not an emergency, but a promise fulfilled. Let us remember the battle. Let us renew the vow. Let us rise again, not just to fight disease, but to uphold the dignity of every Motswana. To President Mogae, we thank you. To President Boko, we say lead boldly. To the people of Botswana, we say this is your moment again. To Repiage, we say congratulations. This should be the beginning. I smell a movie. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Sindu. Tshwantse bo kile wa bereka le union somewhere in the past. You have that thing, you know. Yeah, your speech is quite inspiring. Now at this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, the then special advisor to President Mogae to come and share a special reflection and congratulations on your appointment of yesterday, Advocate Signi Pilani. Leadership. It is sophisticated. It's a crema ya la monde tani. Legalese. Okay, Mamulukum under pressure. Please say, yeah, okay. Obviously, this thing it also affected human capital. Thank you very much for Advocate Sydney Pilani. Let me call to the stage now the President of Business Botswana, the owner and founder of Abaricom, Reneo Mwako. Leadership, come to me.
But let me first, obviously, before I say all protocol observed, recognize Rewinta Muluzi, Dr. Mudise, and of course the man of the moment, Mr. T. We recognize you, Ratif. We really recognize you. When Ratif invited me as President of Business Botswana to come and celebrate and give a tribute to Mogae and to this very special book. Kileka put a number of questions. If I have to write a speech, what type of speech would it be? And then I realized that I might be big in physical stature, but in terms of me being able to pen down words that would really reflect the true leadership of this great icon that we are celebrating tonight would do injustice. So I've decided that Ketla Bua, just from the heart, and recognize what leadership is about. Because this war against AIDS that was fought and led by Mogae, being the president of the country at that time, was what true leadership is about. From a business context, we saw the public-private sector discourse being totally enhanced and being productive during Mogae's time. He was a leader who didn't fear contestation of ideas, who didn't fear different arguments. There is always a challenge between business, private sector, and government. Despite them needing one another and supposed to be having a symbiotic relationship, we have realized that most times than not, they see themselves sitting in opposing sides.
But we could not say that of Mogai's time, because it was during those Mogai's presidency that we saw the strengthening of Bokhim. It was during his presidency that we saw the high-level consultative council taking place, and there being religiously every year a minimum of 2 consultative meetings between the private sector and government. It was during those times that we saw the enhancement of the National Business Council, where there was open, transparent dialogue between government and private sector to ensure that the impediments are removed that would ensure private sector to thrive. And it was on the basis of this relationship that, God forbid, when Botswana was challenged with the scourge of AIDS in our small population, and with his multi-sectorial leadership, he was able to call all the key stakeholders around and said, Botswana bethu, re wetse ke siru. We need all of you to come, put your heads together, and let's fight and address these issues. Indeed, it took bold leadership, and I'm not going to repeat the words of those that spoke before me that had personal interaction and experiential interaction. I know earlier on, the director of ceremony spoke about the proficiencies of the speakers in terms of people who are well acclaimed in their spheres of work by being doctors and professors. And us, the mere mortals, it's either you are infected or affected. So that's what AIDS meant to all of us. Even those of us who grew up during those days know the pains of losing family members, losing friends, losing colleagues at work. Not that it is a disclaimer, but I grew up in a family where my mother was an activist, was an AIDS activist. May her soul rest in peace, Dr. Shea in Mahalape. She was a great activist, and she had an orphanage. And I used to see the pains of those kids who didn't know if they had a tomorrow. And it's through this intentional leadership that we saw companies such as the Botswana, private sector companies, such as Kalahari Breweries, standing up and coming up with deliberate, intentional programs to help against this fight. Imagine in the late 90s, early 2000s, when Botswana was the land of milk and honey because diamonds were producing the right money to enable development of the country. And that's the Botswana we grew up in, and that's the Botswana we knew. And suddenly, you had a workforce that was totally affected by this disease. If there was no intentionality at a leadership level to say we are going to halt everything and this is a national crisis, as we heard from Professor, 20% of the budget of the country was put towards health. That took courage and bold steps by leadership at that time. It took bold steps by leadership to say to Anglo that you are going to fund our program to ensure that we have a productive workforce. And the business community then all stood up and supported government in this great initiative. And that's why the speakers before me spoke about the rapid decline in funerals and the increase in seeing healthy Botswana. We didn't see at that time the sales of our diamonds going down. And the reason we didn't see that was because of true leadership and the interventions that were done by the leadership of that time, and indeed the private sector. And indeed, even now, as we have challenges, it is in moments like this that we really appreciate that we don't wait for people to be absent and we give them their flowers. And we take this moment to say, to Ranametso, to say, it's upon your leadership that all of us will continue and ensure that we make the right decisions. We support, as private sector, as businesses, we support government in all its intentions and endeavors to ensure that there is universal health for all. When a few weeks, a month and a half ago, we were befallen by the shortage of medicines, I put on my shoes and I went to see Dr. Modise in his office. And I said, Doctor, Rele Botswana and the local private sector, we are ready to assist you where you need help. We have seen earlier during the year when we were befallen by disaster through floods, we rallied the private sector to come and make donations so that they can help Botswana and Botswana. And that's the Botswana that we should protect. A beautiful, well-known writer by the name of Alan Paton said, "Cry for the unborn, for they inherit our fears." So if we have a leadership that's not bold, if we have a leadership that is fearful, then the unborn will inherit our fears. But today marks a day where through this book written by our good brother Repare, we'll be able to reference and relate what bold, intentional leadership is about. Ke a leboga. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rengwako. Ke ratile kgang ya gago ya ga Alan Paton e mpontshitse gore go ra re wena ya ka nna re itsenetse Tswana Media mo Mmanyana bo Moeng College jalo jalo wa bona. Very touching one. Thank you very much. Allow me now at this juncture to call to the stage really advocate Sydney Pilane to reflect at the time when he was special advisor to the President Festus Mogae.
Perhaps we often do not recognize the people who serve this country and the people who have served it with great merit. Some of them have come forward and spoken, and some of them will do so yet. They sit at these tables. That for me is protocol. Mogae, as Dr. Mulukume has said, was more than just a general in the fight against HIV/AIDS. He was a comprehensive leader, a leader who had a country to run and who understood that. Who understood that in addition to fighting HIV/AIDS and the need for the immense resources that must be put towards that fight, there was still also a country to run. A country that had many other challenges, a country that had many other problems, problems that could not be ignored nor overlooked, but ones which required attention on a daily basis. As Dr. Mulukume said, it is important to remember that he was about all of that. And he did it all with great, great success. He was a great man to work for. I worked for him for 6.5 years, seeing him pretty much daily, except the occasional weekend when both he and I had to rest. And we spent a lot of that time talking, because as Dr. Mulukume has said, he was a man who loved debate. He was the ultimate in intellectuals, and he savored nothing more than a worthy discussion. I remember on one occasion, and I do not propose by this to lessen the importance of the role that was played by Rengele in this fight. He was a hero. He was a great hero. But I remember that Mogae and I had a debate about the optics of possibly overusing Rengele. That of great importance, though Rengele was, it was important that we emphasize the other side more, the prevention, rather than the fighting of the stigma. That we had to keep proper proportion, we had to keep proper balance, lest we make the nation feel that we should try to survive the way Rengele and possibly others did. That we must make the nation understand that first, before everything else, we must avoid contracting HIV/AIDS. We also discussed the fact that it's not everybody who has the blessing of surviving for the 32 years for which Rengele has done. And then there might be others who would not be able to survive it altogether if they contracted it. And I told him of a young lady, Wakodi, who contracted HIV/AIDS, tried all the cocktails of medication which were available at the time, and none of them worked. And she died. I am sure there are many others who were in the same position. And so I must remind you that we mustn't think that we can try to be Rengele, because we might not have what he has. The emphatic message that we should avoid contracting HIV/AIDS must remain the utmost message. Please. I have already said Hore Mogae understood that his role was a comprehensive one. He understood national crisis because he had been through some national crises that we as a country had had. The national crisis of poverty and lack of education, and the national crisis of Motho le Motho Kgomo, when the Basotho decided without warning us that they were localizing our joint university and we had to start our own. Unplanned, unprepared, but it had to be done. Mogae was a part of that fight. So HIV/AIDS wasn't the first fight in which he participated. And there's a great deal more that he did for this country during his tenure that just adds to his legacy in relation to HIV/AIDS. He has written, and it was right that he should do so. But let's remember that there was so much more to this great man than just this fight against HIV/AIDS. And so our crises have not ended with HIV/AIDS. We've had COVID-19. We may have had others. But we have another national crisis presently. A one that requires the attention of all of us. A one that requires the recognition of all of us. And a one that requires that we should rally and close ranks. It is the economic and financial crisis that our country is experiencing at this time. After the elections and for a few months, when I met people in the malls and I met journalists, they would say to me, "You are quiet. When are we going to hear your voice?" And I'd say to them, well, we need to give it time because we need to get a proper understanding of the state of our country. And when I reached a point where I thought I was ready to speak, I decided that I couldn't do so without hearing the government's version. So I had a meeting with the president for a few hours to get the government's version, to see if they saw it the way I did. And I was pleased that President Boko recognized the immense problems that this country is having. I was particularly pleased to realize that he had answers to all of them, none of them simple, all of them complex. And he had a vision, and I said to him, goodness, the complexity of your vision and the solutions that you have, are we equal, as a nation, are we equal to them? And he assured me that we were. So I said to him, well, now that I have heard your version, I am ready to make the public statement that I have been asked by many to make. And that statement is that we as a nation have a national crisis. There is no time for recriminations. There is no time for blaming anybody. If that is going to happen, it might happen someday. Right now, the country needs all of us to put our heads together, to do everything we can as a nation to help the government fight the current crisis. And so I ask all of you to please remember that, always. I think the government are trying very hard in the most difficult circumstances. We have a duty, as we did during COVID-19, as we did in the past whenever we had a national crisis, to rally, to close ranks, and together to fight the crisis so that we come out on the other end with victory in our hands. and I have no doubt that we will. Let me close by saying this, that Repiaga, you've given us an opportunity to come and reflect. But let's all go and reflect. Let's go and think about what each of us can do, what role each of us can play in contributing to the solutions that our country needs at this time. Thank you, Mutsamais.
Thank you very much, Advocate Awasala Tomola Piloto, Taura Matata, and so we discuss in what my so no, Camille Tota is error, Rarco, Hobliniana, Honorable Mudise, Honorable Mulut. There are tight. Romania. That currency is here, National Agriculture Show, so nothing to you, Maela. I give you blind. Wow, we believe with a sentimentalism that is very, very inspiring. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, we are calling a legendary artist, George Swabi. Can we welcome him with a thunderous applause?
Make it a argument. Irja. go a re nema a utlwa le smart ke dumedise batho o busetsa moragonyana go se go nene dumela batswana dumela ba ga mmangwato rota re dumele Shilandonga ke mo dumedise ga itsadi yake ke twa go bona ba gaetso ke itumetse mo go maswe le buile ka ga ke itseng ka re kana monna le buang ka eno nna ke mmitsa rangwane ko serowe ke mmitsa rangwane ka gore re batala o teng mmogo nna ke le mosenya ka kwa mosenyeng me le mo botala o te re le mmogo ko re batho ga le buileng ka ene batho ga medimo ga ke nakgang le ga e le e kana ke rang le buile ka ene ka botswere kana ya itse e ne e editse setšhaba motho a ya itse o no mmona ka moriri ha moriri bena o bana o tswa ke go ilela jaana chaile hela motala o thusitse batho ke bua ke menne phata le nkutu motho a tenyela ka ga mmona o kopana o bona moriri o go ile uwe ne re tlogele le buile batho Kadri. Irile au namela kakanama gagwe ye. Thelbe. Mosimanyana ke wena o lemetse. Wele maditse ke basadi ba batho. Ke rile ke go bolelela wa nyatsa. Ke re tswaiga le phuthelwe ka tsega. O ka phuthela le tswai ka tsega. La baba. Yo. Kgakala go se bona seporo go na malala go lebatse seboa se ikgarile ka mosenya yo motonanyana setlodi le ntitsirompi se thola baeng noga ya matodi e loma bosigo e ya re e loma ebe odi wa itse gore ke raya Mosali yo montuna wa boluka abe motina abe bogobe rautwana ozi karole mogapa wa inama ntali tate na molito bitima ile momeno wa kubo ya bupa malelo na le bupame ke bupamisa ke go toka dikubo mariga bela kana ke tanona a ke re gore ke da dikubo di teng Utamaria. Hey! 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 Mona, you go body with you. Muselium Panam Panamokis. Thank you, Mona. Thank you. Thank you, Denban.
Thank you, sir. George Swadi, ladies and gentlemen, give him a very big one, please. Hey, for those that are devoid of the comprehension of vernacular, this song, if it were an English song, we would have written strictly 25 and above. The content of the lyrics. If we go to vernacular, it has implications of bedrooms and 2 naked adults. Basically, that particular song, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, I proceed at this juncture. Let me call to the stage my former schoolmate, Nona Likopelehami, and I read pure science and social sciences, history, and such other things. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the Minister of Environment and Tourism, Re Buipuso Winter Muluzi, ki kopa gore re mekadina o ha tsamaela ka kwano.
Thank you. You may be seated. And I agree with Rengele that we should always be very careful because journalists always have their own agenda. So I think I was one of the first people to arrive, and I was taken to the holding room. And there was no event, actually. It was uneventful. So I went there. But when Advocate Pilani came, because they knew I was upstairs, all journalists came with cameras to come and take pictures of Advocate Pilani and myself, because I think in their minds they thought, these guys are just going to look at each other and not even exchange any pleasantries. Because they were thinking about the Third World War that was held in Bubono a few years ago. And I can assure you that tomorrow it will be in all the newspapers that Honorable Muluzi and Advocate Pilani shook hands. So yesterday, late at night, when I was going through social media, I came across news that Advocate Pilani has been appointed a judge. And I was a bit scared and almost frustrated a bit, because I was wondering, if I can be found on the wrong side of the law, will I survive? But after talking to him today, I realize I will probably be treated like any other citizen. When but you see, the fear that I had last night. I then decided to look at the fear and say, in this black cloud, where is the silver lining? And I said, the silver lining is I should never find myself on the wrong side of the law, because you can never know what will happen to you. But having said that, let me acknowledge the presence of Minister Modise, and let me acknowledge the presence of people who came before us. They have already spoken and they have done great things for this great republic. And let me acknowledge each and every one of you who has graced this beautiful event of the launch of Mogae's book. I wish to maybe at this point greet all of you and say good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly an honor to stand before you today, not to debate policy, not to comment on the global economy, and certainly not to offer a competing memoir, but to join you in celebrating a man whose leadership has left an indelible mark on this country and far beyond. Former President Festus Mogae. We are here tonight not just to launch a book. We are here to honor a legacy, to reflect on a lifetime of service, and to be reminded through these pages of what leadership can and should look like. Now, when I first heard that there will be a book released and a book where Mogae has contributed, I had two thoughts. First, I said, oh, finally, because one would obviously think that a figure like Mogae can't just go without writing his memoirs. Secondly, I thought, I hope I'm smart enough to understand it. I hope I'm smart enough to understand it. Because knowing Mogae and how complex he was, to understand what he says sometimes may be very, very difficult. Because let's be honest, we are talking about an economist who could read a national budget like a bedtime story. A man so calm and collected. He made even the most complicated global negotiations feel like a relaxed fireside chat. If you've ever been in a room with Mogae, you know he doesn't have to raise his voice to be heard. He doesn't need grand gestures to command attention. He was attention himself. He has that rare quality, authority without arrogance. During his presidency, Botswana stood as a beacon, not just of democracy, but of reasoned, thoughtful leadership. In a world often driven by noise, Festus Mogae led with calm. Where others chased popularity, he chose principle. He helped steer this country through difficult times, economic uncertainty, the HIV/AIDS crisis, not with flashy slogans, but with sound policy, expert consultation, and moral courage. His leadership was not reactive, it was actually intentional. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson this book that we are going to launch today will give us. That leadership is rarely loud, it's deliberate, it's patient, and it is informed. And now in this book, he speaks again, quietly, thoughtfully, but with impact. This book is more than a memoir. It is more than a historical account. It is in many ways a conversation between the past and the future, between experience and aspiration, between leadership and the people it serves. President Mogae doesn't just tell us what happened. He tells us why it mattered to do it and how we might learn from it. He reflects with honesty, not with nostalgia. He does not glorify the past, nor does he try to rewrite it. He offers it to us as it was, complex, challenging, and full of choices that tested character as much as competence. That, to me, is the mark of a true leader. Advocate Pilani, when he was here, actually said we should look at Mogae not only as a fighter who fought HIV/AIDS, but as a leader who led this country. So that, to me, is the mark of a true leader, one who is willing to be examined. Mogae fought HIV/AIDS with everything he had. All this is chronicled in the book that we are launching today, Mogae's Battle for a Nation's Survival. Inside How Botswana Waged War on HIV/AIDS, a detailed and engaging chronicle of how President Mogae spearheaded the war on HIV/AIDS during his highly illustrious presidency. The book tells the story of Botswana's struggle against HIV/AIDS scourge, framing Mogae as the general of the battle, but also pays homage to all who contributed in the struggle. It chronicles the grim realities of this war and the behind-the-scenes accounts of this dark chapter in Botswana's history. This book is not just for politicians or policymakers. It's for anyone who cares about public life, about ethics, and about service. It offers young people something very rare these days: perseverance in the midst of calamity. It's easy to look at the world today and feel discouraged. But when we read the story of someone who led with honesty under very difficult circumstances, who admitted mistakes, who cared more about outcomes than applause, it reminds us that integrity is not old-fashioned, it is timeless. President Mogae's legacy, as told in his own words, shows us that you can lead with intelligence and humility, with strength and softness, with conviction and consultation. Comprising of just under 40 chapters, the 500-page book is the very first in the country to document the saga of his relentless fight against HIV/AIDS. It is conscious, comprehensive, and well-researched, and has been acknowledged as such by prominent Botswana, such as former Minister of Health, an HIV specialist who is here today, Professor Shilatlo, who is the former, or who is former permanent secretary, and the former permanent secretary in the same ministry, Dr. Edward Magano, who penned the books Forward, and the late icon, Michael Kitsodingake. Since the role President Mogae played was at once epochal and talismanic, this book focuses not on Botswana's HIV story to date, but from the time it was first reported in the country, and that was in 1985, to the expiration of Mogae's presidential tenure. The frame reference, therefore, roughly encompasses the years 1985 to 2010. The book is being launched today here in Travelodge with up to 300 people or 300 invitees from across sectors, and such people are yourselves, and you are all here to reflect, honor, and remember. Director of Ceremony, the Big Fish. In conclusion, let me take this opportunity to profusely thank Mogae, not just for this book, but for his life and service, for being a leader who led not by fear, but by facts, not by ego, but by example. I would like, through Cheza Mogae, convey my greatest thanks and convey the greatest thanks from the people of Botswana to Mogae for his visionary leadership and for what he did for Botswana. If it was not because of Mogae, we don't know where we will be. But because of his efforts, we are here today enjoying Botswana, even under the difficult circumstances that Repilane spoke about. Having said that, as we gather here today, I wish to everyone to appreciate the example that was set by Mogae. I encourage you to read this book. Don't rush through it. Let it challenge you. Let it inspire you. Let it remind you of the kind of leadership we need, not just in politics, but in every sphere of our life. We celebrate not just the launch of this book tonight, we celebrate a standard, and we celebrate a man who has always held the standard, not above us, but in front of us, as a guide. We thank President Mogae, we thank Tefo for penning down this book, because this book will continue to inspire Botswana from generations to generations. As you probably will remember, last week we launched the City Tourism Project. And one of the things that we envisage is that there will be stories told about what we achieved as a country. And I'm happy that we are launching this book, which tells a story about how we successfully managed to annihilate HIV/AIDS in this country. And I'm happy that in our effort to diversify our tourism product, Mogae will always be remembered through his book, which I think will also be kept in our national museums for tourists and visitors to appreciate what Mogae did for this republic. I thank you very much. Have a great evening. The book is launched.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I'm going to ask for the unveiling of the Minister of Health, my home man, the daughter to the former president, Madam Cheza, yes, and of course the author. Okay. Thank you. Stella Dr. Mott. Thank you. Madam Chiza, Sedzela ngatu
As we officially launch the book, I will cut the ribbon.
Wow. Okay. Group photo closer there. COVID is gone. Now we can touch each other. No problem. Don't be afraid of one another like that. We are synonymous with petals. Okay. And then, before we do the candlelight session, autographed books from the author to our guests here present. He's again, thanking Botswana's most handsome brother. Our passport, then you could look at the color, light in complexion. I need one. Yeah. Who? Who's missing? What happens? Hey, this guy. Wow, sabotage. This guy. That's not the one. I can. Disappear. Get me pen. Okay. Oh, he can use the doctors. Hey, maybe one day you'll also be. Yeah, no, I'm not doctor. Because to the I will pala go ga skwile ra go nela hello. Ra go tikela Dr. P. Nna ka gore ke ba go iposa ra go le ka re ka like we le tse tota ke sa bue le taba to leng tikelela gore mo nna bua se goaela sometimes go agriculture sometimes go no re tshwa dibuka you know, Dr. Pheage, that would be majestic, yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Oh, but one by one. They're fine, okay. Okay, yeah. There we go. Okay. One by one, there. Okay. Yes, it's a family thing. Yeah. I get it. Like a bit. Are you good? Okay, thank you very much. Duncan, no, not yet. We are still here. Okay, yeah, no. Oh, there is another one to be conferred to Dr. Moeti. Okay, you are cool there. You don't want to be here for the candlelight. What kind? Okay, she's invited. The directive came from the top. The minister has duly instructed me to invite your person, the one who eats yes one by one.
Your talent is beyond.
It's okay. Okay, thank you. And then now the candle, HIV Festus Mogae and then to make it colorful and memorable, they are very, very dangerous in that dispensation. So Babu Sedilame, you shall lead in that one. Okay. And then remove this one. Remove that. BTV, itabe sa code kamoso. Somebody you charge BTV. They was a code kamoso. They did not code. Okay. But you know what I mean? Yes, okay. Let's all rise to this particular occasion. And then that's beautiful. That's very beautiful. Manifestation of hope. And then how quite pina. ke ta kopa gore the honorable ministers mo le mongwe le mongwe a ikemeletse candle ya gagwe a ke re lo iri alo Mr. Phege mo le mongwe a emeletse candle ya gagwe tse dingwe di ko ditafoleng ke tsele ha le tsele, and then we hand over to the choir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. I think I am allowed to make one program release my elders. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Is a weapon of mass destruction. We saw a member of parliament in another country passing on today because they were proximity to weapons of this nature. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the precipice of the conclusion of the day's before we do the Reader's Crown contest, Reader's Crown contest, le tabelira di pledge gore le BDF la go reka dibuka di le kae le gambling authority my former employers la go reka dibuka di le kae American embassy la go reka dibuka di le kae hela jalo ministry wa ga honorable Winter Mulutsi obviously gore kana di library tse tsotlhe tse di tsamaelanang le tourism tshwanetse re be di le teng go di ko wa bona gore we are also going to encourage the sales of the books through hard tab, just for example, like Rabon E. And then kanako e go raya gore allow me to call back to the stage a gentleman who carries himself with utmost flamboyance, the coolest cat in town in the ministerial fraternity. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Stephen Modise, my man. Yeah. Coolest cats in town. Yeah. No, I'm be rocking earrings like that. Your dog was I'm saying, my man.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Be seated, please. Thank you kindly. Moto habata di event is the Ministry of Health or Amon. Amon. I have a friend of mine who works for foreign relations who, after becoming minister, whispered to me as a form of a tip, and he said, you know, Stephen, if you are ever at an occasion where there is somebody in the crowd that you don't like, and is part of protocol and you have to say their name, just go there and say protocol observed. So I want to reassure you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that as I say protocol observed this evening, that I have no issues with any of you seated here today. But even that as it may, allow me to recognize in a special way a lady who is a mother figure, who is an older sister, who is a very great resource to me. Allow me to recognize in a special way Professor Shirato. And I also want to recognize in absentia another lady who's gained great adoration from myself, former Minister of Health, Madam Joy Pumapi. You should see us when we rock up to World Health events, when we get to Geneva, when we get to Addis, and the Botswana delegation is introduced, and they see 3 generations of ministers of health. And it's always quite interesting because we'll be seated together. Protocol will come to her and say, Minister of Health, say, no, former Minister of Health. They'll go to Mapu Mapi. Minister of Health, she say, no, former Minister of Health. And there, seated next to them, with an absolute grin on the face, would be myself. And they would ask, Minister of Health, I'd say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is great to have such a resource to tap onto, because then you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Whenever I have a challenge, I just call on to one of them, and I know that help is on the way. And I beg, please don't change it in any way. Let me also recognize the words that were shared by Advocate Sydney Pilani when putting a focus on the economy, called for us to come together to work for the betterment of this country. And I would like to just add a little flavor and extend it to just beyond the economy, to all sectors of the country, because this is all our country. It's one Botswana. We are all Botswana. I invite all your great ideas at the Ministry of Health, and I know Minister Muluzi shares the same sentiments, and all the other ministers really want your input, because right now we are at a point of transformation. We are transforming our country, and we want to transform it into leaps and bounds.
And our president, my boy and yours, always says, this country is going to look spectacularly different in 3 years. And believe it, it is going to happen. I don't want to turn the evening into an adoration contest. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we close today's very important event, I wish to express my deepest gratitude to all of you for having found it fitting to come together to celebrate this remarkable book, which chronicles the extraordinary leadership of former President Festus Mogae in the fight against HIV/AIDS in Botswana. It is through his foresight, courage, and unwavering commitment that Botswana laid the foundation for what has become one of the most effective and successful HIV/AIDS responses in the world. Because of President Mogae's pioneering efforts, Botswana not only achieved but exceeded the UNAIDS 95-95-95 targets, setting a global example of what focused leadership, will, and compassionate public health policy can accomplish. His legacy is testament to the power of leadership that puts the health and dignity of its people first. As I listened to Dr. Moeti speak passionately earlier about how she should be looked at, and it will be a distinguishing spot on her or some form of stigma, I want to reassure her that through her hard work and those who engaged in this fight, now when Botswana is out there, we are distinguished differently. We are distinguished as a shining example, and Botswana shines because of you. As we honor President Festus Mogae's contribution today, let us renew our commitment to building on this strong foundation, ensuring that every person living with HIV/AIDS in Botswana continues to receive the care and support they deserve. Together, we'll keep advancing towards a Botswana free of new HIV infections and discrimination, fulfilling the promise of hope and health for all. As the new government that took the stewardship of this country last year, we have lined up some reforms in the health sector that will see the health sector of this country transform into a more efficient and resilient health system that serves all its people. We are currently working on transforming central medical stores so that we permanently resolve the issue of inconsistent supply of medicines and medical supplies. We have also set up a project office to kickstart the process to roll out the National Health Insurance Scheme that will ensure that every Botswana has access to quality health care, regardless of their station in life. That is worth applause. And whether you believe in God or the universe, imagine how it would have looked like if I was standing here today with the dire shortages of medicines and saying to you that everyone will have access to quality health care. But through the universe, God, I stand here today very proud and confident because as I speak to you now, melemo e mo dipateleng. Not only is melemo mo dipateleng, we are expecting more to the tune of 36 tons of medicines that are coming in from Dubai, all assorted medicines to tend to our people. So I repeat, melemo e mo dipateleng. From worrying about our folks who rely on ARVs and other medicines for chronic diseases to now having a different challenge. My challenge now is, where am I going to store all these medicines? There is so much. And I want to acknowledge all our partners who came to the party because I grabbed the phone and I called everybody who cared to listen. I called the World Health Organization, UN agencies, I called CDC Africa, I called embassies, I called everyone. And there was no even hello. They said hello, and I said, I want medicines. You know, who are you? Say, I'm Stephen Modise from Botswana. And they came to the party. I want to acknowledge every single one of them. I see you, Dr. Ndenzako. Thank you very much for your hard work and your team. And like I said, these are contacts that I have because of the relationship that I have with the former ministers of health in this country. So our future is secure. And I heard as some came and said that there is, our healthcare system is ailing, our healthcare system is in trouble. I say our healthcare system is undergoing transformation. And I invite you to come to the party. I recognize Mr. Noako in a special way also, because he's one of those who came to the party when I asked. He came to the office, they said, we want to see you. I say, well, come in. And he asked, what can Business Botswana do? And we had a whole conversation about it. And all partners, I see you in the room, who came to my office, and we talked about this, and your efforts are appreciated. I say this to maybe debunk the myth that the Minister of Health is inaccessible. So I want to request you, Mr. Noako, that when they attack me in the media, that I'm inaccessible, please help me and say, no, he is accessible. Don't leave the fight to me alone. I have no doubt that these and many other health reforms that we're introducing are building on the foundation that President Festus Mogae laid. This book, therefore, will forever be a constant reminder of where we come from. It will also serve as a motivation for us all to keep doing better for our country and the people as President Mogae did. Ladies and gentlemen, with these few remarks, I thank you so much for joining us in the celebration of courage, vision, and success. And I want to congratulate you, sir, Tefo Pheage, for taking this initiative. You have immortalized this endeavor. You have immortalized President Festus Mogae as if he needed any more immortalizing. You have immortalized yourselves. And for attending this event, ladies and gentlemen, you have indeed immortalized yourselves too. May the story told in this book inspire the current and the future generations of Botswana and beyond. And with that, I want to thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have a safe trip back home. Okay. Heaven, okay.
No. Over and above the books that we handed to them, really we feel that they can be very colorful. They are youthful and vibrant. Honorable Minister, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our PR 101, how are you saying? Yeah, if you want to know anything about public relations, follow this gentleman's page on social media. Number 2 after me in terms of that particular area. Yes, please. Yes, the author. Yeah. By inspiring or about the barricade book, I will buy promote. Scaratocaras download a mania. I want to.
Ra lebo gabagaitso ke kopile go tla go fa matona rona dimpotse ke di-shete, and they are inscribed with the names of you, the fighters, the troops on the ground, the partner institutions, the victims, the activists, and the health workers.
Really nice. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Ke a leboga matona di shete tse borra di tletse madi a ntwa ke dumela gore le tla di apara with honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my leader. Program the book is available for sale outside. It's 350 pula. And then pleasure. Those that are pledging, the book will be delivered to you or to your office tomorrow. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, now allow me to call to the stage for a vote of thanks, Taloganyo Kaisara, Project Manager, I6 Logistics.
I know it's okay. Okay, thank you very much, Big Fish. It is a great honor. I think we are at the end of our program, and I wouldn't take much of your time, but take this moment to recognize our ministers, Rem Moluzi, Dr. Modise, and all the speakers who were at the podium earlier on. I just want to say that we so much appreciate on behalf of Tefo Pheage, the team that has been working around to ensure that this event is a success. I was asking somebody to say, what is the difference between a vote of thanks and closing remarks? Because every time I'm asked to give a vote of thanks, I end up giving some remarks, but I will avoid that for tonight. And just say that there is one thing that I was listening, having been one of the young professionals back then. I think I was 24 years old when I first walked the journey in the fight against HIV/AIDS. Before Mamuluku Mebanza Kisako Center for Applied Research. I'm just reminding her. Yes, so there's one thing that always inspires me from what Dr. Mogae once said. And wherever I have a chance to speak, whether it's about health, the economy, or whatsoever, it comes to my mind. And that is when he was challenging all Botswana to say, when the history of this epidemic is written, ask yourself, what did I do to help? And tonight, I want those words to echo in all of us as we live to say, what did we do to help? And on top of that, we say, what can we do to help? Because the reality is that we still have a long way to go. It might not only be about HIV and AIDS, but we are faced with a lot of challenges within the health sector in particular. I'm not going to talk about the ones that the ministry is addressing. We know a lot is being done. But then as people were talking, I picked that, you know, for some time now, HIV, we need to sustain the efforts that are on the ground and make sure that we have added efforts towards that. But still, being somebody who has continued to be in the industry, we must make sure that we also channel our efforts towards non-communicable diseases. I've gone around, I've seen, Botswana downplaying the effects of cancer. And I so believe that is a lot that is happening around cancer. We probably don't have the data. And to me, this is the time that we really have to look into that and say, how best can we deal with this? Because my observation is that we are losing a lot of young and economic productive people to cancer. I don't have the numbers, but it's something that we really have to look into. So it's just something that, because you are here, Dr. Modise, I'm saying maybe something that you can reflect on and see what can be done. There's still a lot that can be done. People have talked about the multi-sectoral approach, which has worked. I'm glad that we now have maybe our clinics under local government. It helps the efforts of both ministries in that. Back then, the efforts of business Botswana were more visible because you would have a business person in a particular village contributing to that locality directly with the local clinics. And those are the efforts that we have to drive forward, including the civil society response. And I know, Mayor Kelemi, it's an area that you have been working on. Bobo Cape, I can see you around. That is something that we have to do. And whenever I got a chance, I always say, we may not win if we ignore the structures that are at the local level. And that is the legacy that has been created and left by Dr. Mogae himself. And to that, we say, let us never drop the ball. Having said that, I wish to say to this book, it is not just a book, as you all have said, but it's a register to say, this is where we have come from and where can we go. We all have to ask ourselves that question. And I implore all of you to say, let us come together and support this. Allow me to call you this young man, Re Pierre, for just this moment, to further this project to where it is supposed to go. He talked about, the documentary. To me, that is the only way that this message can reach the rest of the world, through a documentary that you can put on YouTube and whatsoever. But at the end of it all, we thank you for gracing this event. It's not always that you see something that is the trademark is an individual name. You see a lot of people and the people of your level and caliber. And to that we so appreciate, and I think we are learning a lot from you, and it becomes a motivation to many more to come. Thank you very much, and may God bless you for now and forever.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ya no gora gore kanyele ya di pleasure le gotile ke re boelle gape ba ba pleasure ba tshuletse matsogo ka speed yana hela just about 3 or so minutes before we go to dinner and disperse. Baba pleasure, the book is outside 350 pula. Baba pleasure ho me Mogae, okay, tautse data yo mo gape yo mo gape yo mo gape other pledges kind of yes no actually Ray is my brother. Ray is there at the back there. Okay, there's another one. Murutu aruna ayana banza tubela go na to go tswalla ka thapelo a re tsere pledge e ba buisana ba golo ha VIP ha le gore bone ba ka etsa jang le lona another one here. Come my lady, yeah la ba ka e bombe ba di pledge, and I'm working for you. I can't let my yeah, let's say agrabona here agrab yeah Ibile mamo ga ene ibile ha but mo go diegwa ngone ho yi mo teng a re kgaogane re santse re utlwana gona ba dipholo tsa ka moso accounting properly. It's a generational manifestation. Anybody else? Yes, at the back. Okay, there you go. Anybody else? Yambe ba ntse ba play bangwe ke wa hit la kwa hit la children ke you what go is ke what's I change no it's because I keep changing who's changing the queen developing pledges how much developing pledges I can go to the enthusiasm. Okay, business Botswana. Oh, Abari, oh, okay. The baby of Abari.com, the best in terms of it. When you are 74, not about what fakes machine. So I get. BITC also pledges there. BITC. Some huge expo coming. It's our Limponi. I'm BITC. I go the Christmas party. Lindeletse. Khonna monat. Okay. 1 more minute of pledges, 60 seconds. You have written yourself by. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Yan bali di rekang hali ni reka konte kwa kone hala yan kone anu yan. It is immediately autographed. Ora ruta buta maka buka ena le the heart and soul of the banta bare reheditse ki kupile muruti go ratsa maele ka kwano. Before we do that, our militsa.